So yeah, I remember driving home from that meeting and I walk into my house and I just sit down on the floor and I have no idea what to do. And I have no idea who to call. And I'm just in shock, having this compounded betrayal upon betrayal. I felt like really this loss of self and who am I outside of this marriage.
Welcome to Love Makes a Way. You are listening to Jennifer Hoffman, founder and president of Life Options Network, and Beth Reynolds. On this podcast, we talk about creating a culture of life and how you can create that culture in your community. We hope that you listen and are encouraged. Hey everybody, welcome back to Love Makes a Way. I am so honored to have a friend here, somebody that I have known for a very long time. We actually went to the same church for a number of years, and she's incredible. She is a single mom of 3 boys. She has a business that is booming. She does charcuterie, and she also has an amazing story of God's redemption in her life and her family's life. And because her story is something that I really believe so many women struggle to talk about, so many families struggle with, I was thinking, hey, let's have her on the show. Let's talk about this. So we are going to talk today about the subject of infidelity. And so just so you guys know, be aware, children, probably not the best episode for them, but we do want to talk with Amy about her story. So Amy, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on. And
thanks for having me.
I'm so grateful. It's going to be.
I'm so grateful. I'm excited. And yeah, just being out here has been so fun. And it's interesting because I just remember, I'm like, man, I feel so excited to actually share this, which just goes to show how far like I've come and how good God is. Cause I'm just like, this is such a weighty, heavy subject, you know?
Yes.
So, but healing is so possible. And so I'm so excited to share that.
Yeah. No, it really is. And everything we do on this podcast, and I really like the audience to know this, is our heart is healing the hearts of mothers.
Yeah.
And of course, the family as a whole. And I always like to say, even as you're going to share your story, there are men who have also experienced spouses cheating and those types of things. So we don't ignore those things, but we really do have a big heart for mamas in this whole Love Makes a Way production. So thank you. And I'm excited. So tell me, so I want to start, you were in Bible college for some seasons and you met your husband at the time. So tell us your story. How did you go from being in more of a pastoral position to ending up in the place you guys were?
Yeah. No, I'm happy to. And just for sake of time, I'll give kind of like the Cliff Notes version. But yeah, I was married for 13 years. I met my husband in Bible college. He was a pastor. He was, a gifted worship leader. We were youth pastors for a long time. Within those 13 years, we had 3 beautiful boys. And had pastored between 2 churches within that time. So we were a ministry family, and there was sort of this season where things just kind of felt really tense, and I couldn't figure out what was happening. And I remember just calling a pastor one day who was just a really close friend of ours, and I just remember calling him, and I'm just like in tears because I'm like, I just feel like something is wrong and I can't put my finger on it, but like just something's really off. And it's just that like intuition. I was just like, there's something, like I could feel it in my spirit, like just in my house. I was like, there's just something off. And obviously no one knows anything at the time. And so this friend, pastor, just said, well, I don't know. Like, I know that your husband really loves you, and I can talk to him. But, I don't know what's going on. And I think that conversation was sort of this catalyst to opening the door for, my husband ended up disclosing a lot of information to him that was incredibly hard and heartbreaking. And so then I'm at work one day, and this is about 2 weeks after this phone call. And I get this text message that says, "Hey, we need you to come into the pastor's office." Same guy I spoke with. And I just remember being like, we don't usually meet in his office.
Right.
Like we hang out for lunch and dinner, and these are friends. And he just said, "There's something that I need to tell you." And I just started feeling really sick. And I just was like, I don't know what I'm going to hear. I don't know what I'm going to find out, but I just think it's going to be really bad. And I go to my manager and I just said, "Hey, I have to leave work. I have to go into a meeting in my pastor's office." And she goes, "Okay." And I'm so glad she was so gracious with me. And she just goes, "What do you think you're going to hear in this meeting?" I said, "I don't really know, but I think that I might find out my husband's having an affair or has had an affair." And I don't know why that was the first thing that I thought of, because it had never crossed my mind before. And I had never questioned his integrity that way. And so it was so out of my radar. Like I was like, but that's just kind of something that I felt. And I told her that, and she said, "Yeah, you're not coming back to work. Like just take the rest of the day off."
Right.
And so I'm just, kind of shaking. I'm just really nervous driving to this meeting. And I walk in and I see the pastor, I see my husband, pastor's wife, and they're all kind of in different, spots of the room. And then there's this coffee table in the middle of the office. And then there's this box of Kleenex. And I remember seeing him push this box of Kleenex towards me. And so I'm like, "You need to brace yourself." And he doesn't say that, but I sit down, I sit next to his wife, and I kind of just picked my knees up and I kind of curled into a ball, and I just sort of just tipped over on her, and I just started bawling. And I have no idea what I'm about to hear. I just am I feel like I'm going to get the most soul crushing information. And it was. And so they ended up bringing my husband in and out of this meeting for a period of about an hour and a half to hear about every affair he had had over the course of 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it was, you're just in shock, right? Because then you have to process the next one and then the next one. And the hardest part for me wasn't actually just finding out about the initial discovery. It was that I knew 5 of these women.
Oh my goodness.
And so finding out that he had an affair with my best friend in the church, and there was a family member involved, or there was women that I've met at company events who, would shake my hand and tell me I had a beautiful family and, I love your kids. And then to find out this was what was happening, but behind the scenes. And so I kind of just refer back to that day. A lot of women, we just call it the day of discovery, right? It's sort of your D-Day. And it was sort of this for me at the time, kind of this line that was drawn in the timeline of my life. It was who I was pre-infidelity, pre-discovery to now, who am I? And, it's interesting because of all the emotions that I felt, my very first feeling wasn't well, how dare he? And a lot of women feel like that, is that it's actually one of the first emotions they feel isn't this anger, right? It's more how could I not see it? How did I miss this? And how did I miss it for so long?
Sure.
So initially you're feeling this self-blame, and I'm just kind of I can't trust myself, or am I not smart enough? How did I miss these signs? And just remember sitting across from him and just feeling this person who, I've loved more than anything is now sort of this stranger. And I remember sort of just sticking my hand out to "Hi, I'm so-and-so. Who are you?
Right.
And who am I?" And so I left that meeting. I drove home.
Did you know that millions of mothers live in adverse poverty across the United States? At Life Options Network, we aim to support these mothers and really encourage them because we know that if we do that, their families will be more healthy and children will be much less likely to end up in foster care or worse, lose their lives. We have free stores, and these stores offer everything that women might need for having their children. So 0 to 5T is completely free to them. We give up to $5,000 worth of free product to every single mom that walks in our doors. We understand that provision is highly important for moms when they have young children, or maybe they found out that they are pregnant and they need all of these things as they think about the future for their kids. We can also talk about our advocacy program, which helps women when they're in places of homelessness, or maybe they need some food and they've run out for the week and that paycheck didn't quite get them where they needed to go. We help women find jobs, and we make sure that children are not living in cars with their mothers. This is something that is going on right now in the United States, and if you guys would like to be a part of helping us with that, you can give $10 a month to Life Options Network. That $10 allows one mom to walk through our doors at our free stores. We have one right now in Middle Tennessee, also on the West Coast, and we would love to have even more than that. Your giving changes and saves lives, and we know that together we can create a culture of life. If you would like to give $10 a month, you can go to the link in this episode description, and it will lead you to our website where you can give.
So yeah, I remember driving home from that meeting and I walk into my house and I just sit down on the floor and I have no idea what to do. And I have no idea who to call. And I'm just in shock because I'm now having to process all of this information at a rate that I actually can't comprehend, and having this compounded betrayal upon betrayal. And it was just sort of this I felt like really this loss of self and who am I outside of this marriage, and who am I outside of being a wife or being a mom or outside of this ministry. And I remember just telling God, kind of negotiating, and I was actually most angry with him first, which was so strange because it's I've loved the Lord my whole life, and I've never felt this why didn't you warn me? Why didn't I see this coming? Couldn't you have given me signs? And then I just remember being I can't believe this is my story. Couldn't you have given me something else? And I remember just sort of bargaining, and then I was but God, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And I felt this level of sort of this shame, right, that came on me because, there's a lot of self-blame of I must be so blind or so dumb. And I didn't see it. I didn't see the signs. And it's interesting because when I've talked to a lot of women who have experienced this, they kind of had their radar up. And so when they have their own meetings or, the initial discovery happens, they actually feel this sense of relief of oh, I'm not crazy. And I never had that outside of just feeling kind of this weird tension in my house and, making that phone call and I think something's off, but I don't know. I never saw the signs previously. So I had sort of this added layer of guilt of how did I not see it? And well, now, was this my fault? Or was I so awful or bad that this had to happen to me? And then it's just, you feel really isolating, right? Shame really isolates you because you're kind of well, is anybody in my world safe? And I trusted this person and I trusted this person, and now I've been betrayed by them. So who do I call and how do I talk about it and and so it was just kind of the day that I felt everything went really dark. And I actually just didn't know how to recover. I didn't know if I could. I actually didn't know if it was possible. I just remember thinking, this is the worst day of my life. I don't know if I can experience anything more soul shattering.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I still have these, these boys that are, they were really young at the time. So I'm I don't know how to show up for them because I don't know how to show up for myself.
Right.
And I don't know where to start and I don't know what to do. And I don't know what my first step is after this. So I feel like my journey was a little interesting in that I felt really privileged by some of the ministry leaders that walked me through. And I know it wasn't the case for a lot of women, but I think because I was in such a state of shock that they kind of reached out to people on my behalf. Because I remember calling a pastor and just saying, where are the women that this has happened to?
Yeah.
And you're like looking for a survival guide.
Absolutely.
Like, how did they
get through?
How did they get through this?
Sure.
Like, how did they survive? Did their marriages recover? Did they recover? Like, are they heartbroken forever? Like, you just, it
so
takes
many questions.
Yeah, it takes a hit on you. Yeah, mind, body, soul, everything. And I just remember him saying, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know anybody that this has happened to.
Wow.
And so I just felt really like alone. And so, but the really great thing that happened is, they kind of called people on my behalf and sort of connected me to people that were like, we think that this person would be really beneficial for you to just kind of start your healing journey, or at least to just hold space for your pain and any emotion and every emotion that comes with it. And so I would get these sort of left field, phone calls that were like, hey, I'm so-and-so, this person connected me with you and I'd love to meet with you and, just walk with you, which is like such a gift.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And just like, hey, I just want to volunteer to sit with you in your suffering. Like,
oh, that's beautiful.
And so I sort of had these like left field, healers that came and really ministered to me in that season of just really deep loss and brokenness. And I mean, I didn't even have a vocabulary for it at the time.
Sure.
And then I started counseling, and that was one of the things that I'd also really appreciated is they, the pastors were like, we just feel like this is sort of outside of our level of expertise and our pay grade, and we can give you wisdom and we will love you and we're not going to abandon you through this, but we're so committed to seeing you through to healing that we want to give you all the support
that's beautiful
that we can. And so I do feel so lucky in that, and that's not everyone's, journey and story. But those were kind of the first steps when I was so paralyzed. And I mean, I tell you, like, I was in so much shock that I couldn't think about my next move, what I was going to do tomorrow, outside of like.
You're just processing this has happened to my life.
Yeah.
How to, like, that's just like getting hit by a Mack truck. And
100%.
Everyone's like, make a lot of decisions now.
Make a lot of decisions. Like, feed your children and put them to bed and give them a bath. And it's like, you just can't. And it's tough because like, when your life is in absolute upheaval, you still have to function.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like a different kind of death in a way because you're now mourning this person who is alive. And so you still have to show up for work and you still have to take your kids to school and you still have to do these things because there's no bereavement for the loss of a spouse and in terms of like
culturally and
marriage.
Right. You're not going to necessarily have people helping you with that stuff, even though I think trauma-wise, you're facing the same level of trauma because your life is completely different.
Yeah, completely different. Yep. And, and then you're kind of faced with the next really big decision. Can we recover?
So talk about that a little bit because I know that a lot of times you'll hear people just say, try to make it work, those types of things. You did try for a while. So talk about what steps you had taken to restore the marriage, all of that, and just heal.
Yeah. It's so tough. I remember, sitting in that meeting and when I like reached my hand out to like reintroduce myself to my husband, I was like, I don't even know you anymore. And then at that time I was like, I'm done. I'm out. Like there's no coming back from this. And it was, the pastor at the time that he made me make him a promise, which I was so grateful for. But he just said, Amy, I don't want you to, one, make any big decisions right now. He said, but I also don't want you to contact any of these women that you know.
Yeah.
And I just remember being like, well, that's really unfair.
Ugh,
Like, of
yeah.
course I'm coming for them. No.
Right.
It's like you have so much anger
Of
that is
course.
so overwhelming. And he just looked at me and he just said, and your heart is way too big and too beautiful to be full of this much hatred and to be full of this much anger. And he's just said, give God the opportunity to to do a miracle. Right. And so I just remember thinking like, okay, I don't want anything to do with this person anymore.
Sure.
But then also it's like you don't stop loving somebody overnight. So then you're just like,
Right.
how do you just switch your brain off to like, this was my life and now it's not anymore? And I just kind of felt like if I had just left, if I was like, I've got these biblical grounds for divorce, like I'm out, like there's too much trauma. There's too much damage to come out of like that.
Sure.
I don't know how it's even possible to rebuild, but I knew that we were a really good candidate for God to,
Do a miracle.
do
Sure.
a miracle, right?
Sure.
And so I just remember thinking like how, I don't know, if I would have felt regret not trying, right?
Sure.
But within that, it's like you still have to set very, very, very appropriate boundaries. And so we had actually separated for a period of time. And that's tough because it's like now you're single co-parenting. And so your world gets a lot harder when you're now doing this by yourself. So everything felt really unfair. And I remember sitting in a counselor's office and he just said, I think that you should let him come home and I think you should let him help, but I think you should, establish like boundaries, right? Like that there has to be safety within the marriage. There has to be like emotional safety and and they're not saying like reconcile immediately and just be able to like take this person back and trust them again. Like everything was completely destroyed. But I knew that I needed help. And I knew that my kids still needed their dad around. And so I just said, okay, fine. Like, let's go to work. Let's try. Like, let's do our best. And so we were sort of in separate, we kind of had our own separate journeys for a while, like whereas mine was now in this process of trauma and heartbreak and just this betrayal trauma that just takes over your entire life. And and he was showing real signs of remorse and repentance. And so our world got really small at the time, which is really strange because it simultaneously gets like really public. Like it gets really like small and private of like,
but then everybody knows about.
Yeah, like you're showing up to places not as a whole unit. Like I'm walking into a church service now sort of as this like fractured unit. And so it's a lot because then you're kind of like, what are people thinking and what do they know or what have they heard? And so there was just sort of this core small group of people that we felt like we could really trust that I think were committed to seeing us through, both of us as individuals, not just like our marriage, but just as individuals. Like, and so I was really grateful for that. And so he was home for about 1.5 years, and we'd put in so much time and so much money into recovery and groups and therapy and program and just trying to get really healed and whole on our own, which is such a different journey and for both of us. And he was home for 1.5 years and started seeing some of those signs again. And I just remember feeling like the Lord was like, I want you to tell your husband you forgive him. And I just thought that was kind of funny at the time because I was like, well, I have. Like, God, he lives here now. Like, he's back home. He's like, I want you to tell your husband that you forgive him. I just said, okay. And so I did. And then he just breaks down sobbing. And he's like, you have no idea how much I needed to hear that. He's like, because I'm just so sorry for what I put you through and what I put our family through. And he was like, I needed to hear that because I knew you wouldn't what did he say? Essentially, like, I knew that we weren't going to survive past this point of information. And so he said, I did it again. I did it again. And I knew right then and there, the Lord was like, it's time, it's, I release you. And, so then it was sort of like this secondary grief
Absolutely.
that came.
Because you had tried.
Yeah.
It didn't go the way that you had hoped.
Yeah. Right. And so, I mean, really, really fought hard for reconciliation, and I'll champion anybody that contends for that, if that's what they feel like God asked, And so in a weird way, it's like I was so devastated and yet proud of myself and proud of us at the same time of like, we put in so much work. Like it's like, so we really fought hard, and so I'm proud of myself for the way that,
you kept going in the midst of what would have been, some people would have just been like, I'm good, I'm done. Out. And you're like, I still believe.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
And everybody, everybody kind of has an opinion on, what they think they would do. I did, right? Before this ever happened to me. I was, everybody kind of thinks they have an idea of what they would do in a situation,
until they're in it.
Until they're in it. And so it's tough because you have people that see taking somebody back as this like sign of disrespect to yourself. Like, no, like you shouldn't, you're not a doormat and you don't take this back. And then you kind of have the other side of the pendulum where it's just like, nope, we are believing God for, full restoration and redemption. And, there's no divorce at any cost. And, and I think everybody is really, really well-meaning. Right. But I think it's like kind of the polarity can get really
convoluted.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, just the whole reality that God, of course he hates divorce. Of course he hates broken family. But it takes two repentant people to have the healing. And I think that when women are faced with what you were faced with, there is a point where you have to not only think of yourself, but also your kids and that. And that's a huge thing. It's an important piece. Do you think that, so in this entire thing that's going on, I know the kids were younger. How over time have you dealt with sharing the story with them, and how have you been able to handle that? Because I feel like that would be one of the hardest things, as raising those babies and wanting them to know how to be in the midst of that situation. So how has that journey been for you?
It's a really good question. That was a different journey in and of itself. Because the boys were so young. So it's like you have to really kind of sanitize like what's happening and information. And well, now all of a sudden their dad doesn't live in the house anymore. Right. And I remember one of the things, I think it was my oldest at the time, and he was about 8 years old. He said, well, Mom, you always teach us that when we fight, that we have to forgive each other. And we have to say sorry. Yeah. And so they said, Mom, why can't he just say sorry? Why can't he just say sorry and he can come home? And that was so painful to wrestle with, because it's like, they don't know there's a difference between like normal marriage conflicts and then there's destructive marriages, right? Like they don't know that. But I also know that like, I want healing for their dad, right? Like I want everybody to walk in wholeness. I want everybody to walk in freedom. And I realized because we are partnering in raising these children together, that like I knew that I had to crush my ego every day for the sake of them, and to put them first, and to speak highly of their dad, and to be just believe that like, he's on a journey, and we hope that God heals him and that he has redemption in his own life. So the boys and I at night, we would sort of, at bedtime, just pray for their dad. And, we would pray for his heart. And it was kind of cute because we would talk about praying for his heart. And they were like, well, does he have to see a doctor? Like it was, is he okay?
Right.
Yeah. And so that practice with my kids actually helped me walk in forgiveness actually quicker because of them.
Yeah.
Because it was sort of this practice of like having to fight bitterness with walking in
Love.
forgiveness and
Yeah.
walking in love,
Mhm.
because, well, these children love their father. And I kind of, everybody loves a comeback story.
Right.
And I'm just like, well, you can still leave a legacy
Mhm.
for these boys
Yes.
if you want. So
Mhm.
we're going to believe for that even outside of our marriage. And so
Yeah.
I had sort of made this commitment that, I would my love for my children would supersede my hurt and my pain. And, even on walking in forgiveness, that whole process, like that my love for them would, sort of trump my feelings about everything else behind the scenes, because they were the most important thing,
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so that journey it was tough, it was
Yeah.
tough. And so, I think we were both just really committed to putting them first, because it's like, it's one thing to carry your own grief. It was an entirely different beast to carry it for your kids,
Wow. Yeah.
and there were times that, just absolutely broke my heart, and, the drop offs and the pickups, and watching, I was my middle child. I watched him run after his dad's car and just saying, why are you leaving? Why are you leaving? And then them getting so mad at me, Mom, I don't understand. Like, why can't he just come home? Right.
Yeah.
And so I would kind of just like gather us. And this is the part that makes me emotional with my kids. And I would just gather us. And then I would just, I would just pray and be like, God's still writing us a beautiful story. And, we still love your dad. And we're going to just keep praying for him. And, so it's like, I had to keep a lot from them, at that age.
Absolutely. Well, they
And
couldn't.
yeah.
Yeah, they couldn't. And I just, what I keep thinking about is just what a mama bear you are, because you're right. I mean, to carry not only yourself, but to be somebody who had compassion, because I know that sometimes women will just shut down.
Yeah.
They emotionally, they won't know how to raise. And then those kids are
Yeah.
double whammied, with
Yeah.
mom's maybe here, but she's not here.
Yeah.
And so just well done to
Thanks.
that. That's
It
amazing.
wasn't perfect.
No,
but
not
yeah.
it doesn't, perfect isn't the goal. It's surrendered, right?
Yeah,
And that
right.
clearly was your heart in the process. Um, what do you think now when you're, well, looking back on the survival,
Mhm.
and you're just thinking about other moms who might be in this position? What were there some things that were helpful to you as you were surviving? Maybe some things that you're like, hey, if you're in this position
Yeah.
and you're raising kids and
Yeah.
you're trying to survive, what are some things that you might tell a mom in that same
Yeah.
place?
Yeah, for sure. Man, I would say if I could just like sit down with any one person who was going through this, or they're just like in the thick of it, one, I would just say, you are going to make it.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to make it. And then I just want to scoop everybody up and give them a hug and just be like, God loves you so much. Like,
Yes.
and you're not abandoned, and you're going to make it. And there are people that are equipped to walk you through this. It's such a dark, scandalous, awful subject. And so many women, especially when they're walking through this, like, you feel that humiliation. So you isolate. And so you don't
Yeah.
actually know who you can share.
Sure.
with,
And that's a real,
Right.
yeah.
And you're kind of worried about everyone's perceptions, or at least I was, of their judgments, or, people kind of judge you on both sides. Well, you should have just gotten out because, this and this, or, and it's tough. And so you have to kind of quiet a lot of like the noise.
Right.
And so I would just say, like, don't isolate. There are people equipped for you. There are people, like, this is not like, God isn't just like all of a sudden surprised and is like, oh my gosh, you're walking through this. Like, he sees, the end from the beginning. Like, and so there are a lot of really good resources and tools. And so one of the best things I did was, a friend of a friend got me connected to an actual support group, and had no idea that these even existed.
I love it.
For people like me, that there are, it's like my husband had to walk through a 12-week process, and kind of going through that journey of like addiction. But I was like, well, where are the people for all these like wounded women and these
Right.
spouses? And ended up getting plugged in with this really cool faith-based support group for betrayal trauma for women of betrayed spouses.
Yeah.
And it was our own individual 12-week program. I think I just said that. And so we had our own homework. It was hard. And I remember that was probably the first place I felt like I could be the most open and honest and vulnerable in community. And it was just actually such a relief to be able to be in the same room with people who understood what you were going through, and you just don't have to say a lot. Like there's just sort of this like unsaid, like unfelt. We just had so much empathy for each other.
Yeah.
And I think one of the hardest things that we did in that first week is we all had to individually write out our stories, like what happened to you. Because part of the healing is having to like write out everything,
to face like this is what
took place, right?
Right.
We're gonna go through this step by step. And we all just went around and shared. And it was honestly just, I feel like the part of the beginning of my healing journey to know that I was in safety with women who were also walking through the same thing, but wanted to heal. It wasn't that they were like, of course it's a safe place to just cry and break down and hold space for each other's emotions. But it was now you're on mission, and whatever you decide for your situation, for your life, for your marriage, like there were women in there that were walking through this process for a year, and half of them in the room were contending for their marriages, and half of them were in the process of divorce. And one girl had found out 5 days about her husband's indiscretions before the class started. And so it's like you can see just this, like, we're all so desperate, for relief.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the first place we felt like the bleeding could kind of stop. And there's just
space for you.
There's space for you. Yeah. And there's zero judgment, and you don't have to say a lot. And some of those people ended up becoming some of my closest friends.
I love that.
And we were just like, whatever you decide, whatever you feel like God is asking you to do, like if he is asking you to, believe in faith for restoration in your marriage, then we're going to contend and we're going to stand with you. And then other people were like, my husband is so deep into addiction and there's no hope, for recovery. And we're going to walk you through what your life now looks like post divorce, post loss, and all of that. So, and my story did end in divorce, unfortunately, as hard as I had, fought for it. But just having that community of women to sort of just come around you and, hold you, like, it really, really matters. Sure. And, and we would make jokes, we're like, well, we're either all going to get healed or we're going to end up like in a gang. And we just like,
gang.
It was it felt like it was.
You just had to laugh. Because it's so hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just looking at how much the enemy hates marriage.
Yeah. Right.
And the ongoing pornography addiction in our nation, in and out of the church.
Right.
And of course, that then leads to more and more challenges for families and for women. And both sides. I mean, there's women that do this to men too. But I think that the reality is we need to start talking about it more.
Yeah, right.
Because we can't heal what we won't uncover.
Right.
And we won't talk about. And the reality is, I think that especially young men need to really have this confrontation with godly men who are saying, not only are we going to talk about this, but this is actually something that's going to strangle your life.
Yeah.
And it's after your family, it's after you, and it's a spirit as well. Because I think a lot of times they're like, well, it's just a temptation, but it's actually a spirit that wants to destroy family. Yeah. And so just knowing that likely most of those women, their husbands were dealing with pornography. Yeah. Is that right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And so
it's usually kind of where it starts.
Yes. Right. They start and then they excuse that and you then whatever. So then the boundaries are worse and worse.
Right.
And obviously we need, I think, as women to really address this with our churches, with our communities, and also hold men to a high standard.
Yeah.
And I tell women this all the time, as we're serving a lot of women that don't know the Lord at all at Life Options Network. So I tell them all the time, you are too valuable to not be married.
Oh,
you are too valuable to not have a man who wants to lay down his life for you.
Right.
Because that is what men are called to do, and women are called to lay down their lives. It's this, we're both getting low, we're both sacrificing for each other. But it's like, if we don't talk about it and it's just sitting out there, then it's hard. And not to place blame necessarily on anything, but just something that's come up a lot because of the culture pushing things on computers and allowing things. It's broken down so much over the last 100 years. So
100%.
It's so real. So I'm grateful that you had that community and people to come around. And honestly, just hearing your story and knowing that not every pastor knows how to.
Right.
So talk to the pastors who maybe they have someone in their church that's going through this.
Yeah.
What would you tell them to say to those mamas?
Yeah.
Or no, that would be moms, women. Maybe it's just a woman. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I mean, pastors are shepherds, and they have such an amazing role, to steward, their flock. And it's tough because this is sort of this subject that it's very layered and it's very complicated. And, there's things that you need to incorporate, not just like with the Bible and with scripture, but also like the Bible and like trauma informed care. Like it's like the Bible and therapy, the Bible and counseling, and like people to come around you and to say like, I have solutions and tools outside of just like, God renewing your mind, and like it's like both and, right?
Right.
And so I was actually so grateful that the pastors that walked me through this actually looked at me and just said, like, we love you so much. We're gonna walk you through this. Your family to us, but we believe that this is also something sort of outside of our pay grade,
right?
In terms of the level of sort of just destruction, in your marriage. And now you're dealing with addiction, right? Because this isn't just, again, something that these are normal marriage problems, like, and now you're dealing with like destructive marriages, addiction, pornography. And so they said, we actually feel like the best thing that we could do to help support you is actually give you somebody who is a specialist and is trained in this area to walk you through betrayal trauma.
Yeah.
And that ended up being like the best, I don't want to say the best year of
sure. But you were able to.
Yeah. Of the tools that the counselor also gave me, sort of in conjunction with like the love and support that my pastors gave me at the same time. So it was sort of this like, you need both.
You do.
Right? Like there's so many hands that get messy in this, or we hope that they do, right? Yeah. Like that's how you help people heal, is people are so messy and complicated. And so it was the ones that really got down on the floor with me. And I'm telling you, I felt like I really made a bed on the floor of hell. And I really thought that my life was over. And I really thought and I'm somebody who has grown up in the church and has always loved Jesus and always had a strong faith. And then when this completely collapsed my life, I was like, I cannot see a way forward, And so, and I could pray and people would, get down in the dirty and just like kind of hold my hands and believe in faith for me. But, I think they fulfilled that role, that shepherding role in a really beautiful way. But the support they gave me for actual tangible tools of like, this is what your day-to-day could look like to walk out. And actually, here are some grief milestones, and here's what to be expected, like in your first year of recovery, And there's not a lot of equipping for that.
Right. What do you do when somebody's good?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love this because I think people, when they look at therapy, sometimes they're like, oh, they're just paying for someone to talk to or whatever.
Yeah, right.
When really, and I love godly counselor, people that have actually gone in and seen what trauma looks like and knows how, they know how to, like you said, the tools.
Yeah.
Because when you're devastated. It's like, okay, now how do we rebuild this house?
Yeah.
I don't even know how, like, how do I build a new, obviously, one of the things you had said was about your identity.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
do you think this has really shaped your identity in a new way in the Lord, because there's had to be this new reliance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes, 100%. Yeah, I mean, it rocked my entire foundation,
Right.
and it kind of stripped away everything. It took away my entire reality of
Sure.
like, this is what
What
this
you
is a
thought
marriage
life would be.
yeah.
Right.
And this is what I thought life would be. And now life as I know it is completely gone. And so I actually don't know how to, find a way forward. And I just would, really wrestle, because you also kind of find yourself in a faith crisis too. And that was when somebody had told me that, they're like, it is actually kind of expected that you sort of find yourself, not just this like loss of self, this identity crisis, but like I was sort of in this faith crisis of like, God, can you help me see a way forward? Like,
Sure.
can you at least just meet me in these places where I can't see a way forward? And so it was, this process of not only just rebuilding my identity. Who am I? Who am I outside of this marriage? I just remember being like, well, what am I good at? And what am I supposed to do now?
Right.
Where do I go from here? And I think that's such a common question is, where do I go from here? How do I rebuild? It is so scary to feel like you now have to live on the other side. But I do feel like my faith was really built and forged in the fire.
Yeah.
And it's like I knew God, but now I know.
Yes.
Like now I know him.
Yeah.
And I look back and I didn't get the restoration in the marriage that I had hoped and that I had prayed for.
Mm-hmm.
But I got the restoration in my own life. And I think where my faith was shaped and where healing really kind of also took place was sort of just this understanding that like we're not promised the outcomes we want.
Yeah.
We're not promised certainty, and that God actually never promises us certainty in these things, but I could cry, but like he promises us himself.
Yeah.
And so I think because I experienced just the Lord with me, like not like, hey, this is what we're going to do a year from now or a year from now, but it's just like God with me, like just he promised himself. And so just sort of like meeting the Lord, like in suffering it was just such a different way that I don't know how to say it, but just like it shaped my faith entirely in a different way, in a good way. And and myself.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, he's what I love about Jesus is he made it very clear, in this life you will have trouble. I think, and we talked about that this weekend. We have an American culture that's like super positive and everything's great, and we just we come from victory, and we do come from victory.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean our life might have a season, and sometimes seasons can last a while of brokenness.
Right.
And that often that's where he is like, I don't know that song. There's another in the fire standing next to me. When you think of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they didn't bow, but Jesus went with them in the fire. And I think for anybody that might be going through these really, really painful things, that Jesus is with you. He has not abandoned you. And what people do is not a reflection of who God is.
Right.
And it's so easy. And I mean, obviously I haven't been through what you've been through, but I do understand when people do some things, you're like, it's so easy to just start being like, God, like, why did this thing happen? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And he's over here like, I'm just crying with you.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that when I discovered that it was like I was so mad, and because it's like you walk through the stages of grief, and when you sit with anger for a long time, I had to sit with anger for a long time. And I just remember being like, why won't this leave? And once I understood that, it's like, well, he's angry too.
Yeah.
Right? Like he hates sin.
Yeah.
Like he's angry too. And I just feeling that him just feeling that pain with me for me, like, oh, God actually hates this too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so it's like, he identifies so much with us, like
Mm-hmm.
in our suffering and in our pain. And it's like, nobody knows betrayal better than Jesus.
Uh-huh.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's like finding this way that I really identified with the Lord. And it was kind of like, oh, like you're mad for me too. Like you're not trying to like rush me and I should have more faith to be where I'm at. Like, and that was part of the struggle I experienced too, because there were things that I just couldn't let go of. And there were, I mean, these was years of walking this
Absolutely.
out of like, you would get to a certain milestone and start to kind of be okay. And then like no one prepares you for your first Christmas alone, or no one prepares you for the birthday parties or the first, like no one prepares you for these firsts. And so then you have sort of these waves of like grief coming back and you're kind of just like, but God, I thought I was past this and I thought I was past this. And, but just like, he's so good and he's so gentle, right?
Yes.
And he's not rushing. Like you should be here. Like,
right.
I think there's sort of a difference between, or what should I say, is where people get stuck is, there's suffering, which is, I think, the most guaranteed thing, in this lifetime. In this lifetime, you will have trouble, but like he's with us. Whereas then there's like misery, right? And misery is just not a noble tribute to life, right? And so I think that there's a lot of people who they can't get the healing that they need.
Well, and they haven't forgiven.
And because they haven't, because they haven't forgiven.
Because how did you forgive?
That's a good question.
I mean, we're touching on it, but I'm like, we're gonna ask that question.
Yeah. No, I mean, gosh, we could talk all day about forgiveness. I mean, it's a practice.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, I know this biblical mandate that I have of, I know that I am this human garbage person that has been forgiven of so much, right? Like in my own sins, put Jesus on the cross. And so knowing that it's like my biblical mandate to forgive, but when you're wrestling with all of the human emotions of like, but they don't deserve this, and they destroyed my life, and they they didn't destroy my life, like, but I think once I understood that forgiveness wasn't like this one-time, one-and-done deal. Like it was a process I really had to walk out. And so there was this mandate of like, yes, I forgive this person. And I would have to say it 100 times.
Right.
And especially as
to keep your heart there.
Right. And to keep it in check. And I would say it, 100 times a day, like, especially as stuff came up, or especially when I would feel this injustice and this unfairness of like, why is this my life now? And why couldn't you be better? And, I remember falling apart over trying to open up a jar of jam. And I'm trying to make sandwiches for my kids' lunches. And I couldn't open up this brand new jar of jam. And I just broke down crying. And I was just like, he was supposed to be here and he was supposed to help open this jar of jam. And so then I felt all of this anger come back. And I just like, it was this practice of like, okay, like I forgive. And, so you have this mandate, right, of forgiveness, but you walk out the impacts for a long time. So it's forgiving what happened, but then also just forgiving
those moments,
the moments and the impact, which could take, a while, a long time. Yeah, a really, really long time. And I did have a mentor talk to me about this because I was really struggling. And I was like, I have so much anger. And I remember just hating how I felt. And I'm like, I'm not this person. I'm just so angry all the time. And so then when you wrestle with these feelings, you're like, but did I forgive? Like, even though I said this, but did I do that? If I feel all of these things again, and understanding like that's okay. Like you're still walking out the impacts, right? You're still healing from the impacts. And so this friend, mentor, pastor, he just said, Amy, like your husband and the people that betrayed you, they will have to give an account to God for their life, and for what they did and for their own sin. And he said, but you will have to stand before God and give an account on whether or not you withheld forgiveness.
Yeah.
Or not. And I just remember being like,
rough. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, it just like
so important.
Hit me in my gut, and just how true that is, And I think there's a lot of grace in walking out forgiveness, because it's just, there's nothing linear about healing, and that includes forgiveness. And so that includes, continuously cycling through those stages of grief. And then what do I do when these feelings come up again? And then it's when you forgive it again.
Right.
You forgive it again, and then you forgive it tomorrow.
And allowing grief.
Right.
Because I think what I've seen is when women can become bitter because they don't want to allow the grief of what they've gone through to impact them, or oh well, you did this, so I don't need you, and all men are this way, and all men aren't that way,
right?
And there is so much that can be. The Lord wants to get through those layers with you. Yeah, you're not just on your own with it. Which,
yeah. So it was a process. I'm grateful that it was sort of this like gentle excavation of my heart, my mind, my soul. I just remember feeling like God's going to be so mad at me if I can't get through this. And I remember actually that first year sitting in church services, and whenever there was a sermon on forgiveness, I would kind of just like, my body would get really tight, because I was just like, they don't understand how hard this is. Like, how can you preach that unless you really have to? And how have you had to forgive this many people? It's like you're getting your own headspace. But I just remember feeling sort of like this tension in my body, where I was like, I know I need to get there, but I'm not there yet, but I don't know how, but I know that I need to. And so just knowing that God is so gentle and so kind in walking you through that this, there's sort of that mandate, right? And then there's the process for however long that takes. Yeah. And, I was telling you earlier, there was someone in my life that I knew that walked through something similar. And, she was divorced, and she had been divorced for, decades, right? And I remember just talking to her about it and just hearing the bitterness in her voice. And I'm actually so glad that I saw that, because it was this picture of like, this is not the way that I want to live. And for people who really don't actually do the hard work, like, that's the understatement of the century, because it is hard, grueling work to walk in healing and to walk in
regular forgiveness,
and learning how to become whole, especially when it doesn't just impact your life, but like it impacts your children. And just like the body count is everywhere. Yeah. And it's so ugly. It's so messy. And, I just remember looking at that picture of what my life could look like if I don't actively get aggressive about pursuing healing and get aggressive about learning how to walk out forgiveness. And I just realized, I was like, this is not the narrative I want to live. Because I remember feeling it for such a long time, of the things that I was holding on to and the things that I knew that I couldn't. I'm like, I feel like I can't get free here, and I don't know why. And that misery, kind of getting stuck in that misery that we were talking about. And I think it was when I like really learned how to let go of some of the details, some of like, you don't have to uncover like everything. Right. You don't need to be a detective. You don't actually need to uncover because all that process, it just prolongs like your pain. You get stuck in it. And it was sort of this like, kind of this practice of really surrendering everything that had happened, everything that the details. And that was like a daily surrender. That was a daily practice of being like, I don't need to know why things happened the way that they did. I just need to move forward in learning how to not get stuck in the pain. And so I think forgiveness is really a practice of daily surrender of like, God, I don't want to get stuck in the pain. I don't want to be consumed with anger. I don't want to be this person.
Yeah.
Right. Because I hated how it made me feel. And just understanding that like the Lord is so much of a better defender and judge than I am.
Yes. And
right?
he defends his kids. And that's absolutely something that I think people underestimate with the Lord.
Yeah.
Obviously he went to the cross. So, but if there isn't repentance,
Yeah.
he's a good father.
Right.
And I think sometimes that can be hard when you're in the middle of it to really understand, right? Because you're not seeing what you would like to see or whatever. But I always say I pray for people when they're in a place of rebellion of any kind, because God is just.
Yeah.
And you want them to repent. You want them to heal, because I never would want to face what, God without repentance, God without the cross, God without wanting to, because he is a good father and he will protect and all of those things. And he did it. That's what he did at the cross. But we have to bring him our sin and really turn our lives. So in the midst of just, thank you for sharing that. I know this was such an intense topic, but just in the midst of all of that, as you've been looking at the future, what does the future hold? So you started a business.
I did.
How's that going? So so now that you have, the Lord's brought you over the mountain of, or the valley, talk about just the bravery of starting over and just being like, I can do this.
Yeah. No, it was kind of cool, because part of that whole rediscovery of like my brand new identity and who is Amy post life, crisis. Who is she? And one thing I hadn't mentioned is that part of the struggle that I was walking through is that when I was in the middle of my divorce, I actually lost my job.
Oh man.
And so I just had all this compounded stress.
Yeah.
And I was really trying to figure out where to go from here on all the counts, and how to rebuild, and now what are we doing, and who am I, and what am I good at, and just like, okay, God, I have this like blank canvas of like, who am I? And I'm on unemployment and I'm looking for my next 9 to 5, and I'm now single co-parenting. I have my kids the majority of the time. And so I'm like, I have to be responsible and I have to figure it out. Like we have to make it. And this is really funny, because I never in my life thought that I had like any sort of entrepreneurial like drive or skill set.
Right.
Like it, I knew that God had always sort of like gifted me creatively, and I was always excited to, do creative things. And that was an outlet for me. I didn't ever think like hobbies could like become your business, but that's kind of what happened. And so in the middle of trying to figure out what my next 9 to 5 was, I just started making, these charcuterie boards for like fun snacks for my kids. And then, family or friends would come over, and I just remember thinking like, well, this is a cute way to like host people in my house. And I posted a picture on my Instagram page one day, and people started messaging me, and they're like, you're really good. They go, have you thought about selling these? It's like, no, and so then I make another board like, hey, could we buy one of these from you? And so I just thought it was kind of funny. And I was like, well, I don't really even know how to charge for these. I don't really know what I'm doing, but sure. And so there was this period of time for about 2 months where I'm doing these like under the table, jobs for friends and trying to figure it out. And so a friend was like, why wouldn't you just start like a side business? Like, of course, like figure out your next 9 to 5, but would it hurt to have this little side business? And maybe you sell a couple boards every month and you've paid your utilities bill.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, like, I guess it wouldn't hurt, and now we're brave now, because now we walked through having to be brave. So now we're just being brave on
a whole new
all
level.
fronts. Yeah. And so I had a friend build me a website, and I launched in January of 2022. And the first email that I received that came through was, hey, can you cater for 200 people? I laughed so hard. I was like,
but you're like, sure.
Yeah.
Did you do it?
Yeah, I did.
Amazing.
And I just remember being like, we're just going to figure it out. And so it was sort of this New chapter of actually learning how to be really brave, really doing things that scared me, and actually also just saying yes to God. Like, just like, okay, like, what's the worst that could happen? You know, like, I feel like I've survived the worst. So like, what's the worst that could happen? You know, you fold, you shut down, whatever.
Right.
And there was a period of time where I was actually really sort of like,
nervous about it.
Yeah, kind of bound by fear. And a friend just said, Amy, what if, let's say that you launch this business and it completely flops. And they said, was it actually, what did he say? He said, was it actually like a mistake if you did something that was completely outside of your comfort zone that caused you to grow and that you overcame your fear? He's like, was it a waste? And when I thought about that I was like, oh, okay. Like, I'm doing things that are making me really brave. Single parenting is making me really brave. Launching a business is making me really brave. And so I just was like, okay, God, like, I'm just going to say yes.
Yeah.
And so I did that 200-person event, and just the emails just started pouring through and pouring through. Cool. And so it just sort of learned kind of fumbled through business 101 school. And we're now at almost year 5.
Wow, look at you.
Thanks. And so I'm doing it almost
She did our
full-time.
event in Washington. Yeah. It was so good.
That was so fun.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that you had me out. And
so awesome.
So yeah, it's just been really cool to see how God redeems so many little areas in my life. And
I love the word brave.
Thanks.
I love that. That is true. I think don't stay where you are. Obviously, all the things, process all those things, but there is a future and a hope. So
thanks. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I am. I think, honestly, it's like before this, just telling you, I'm like, I'm excited. Like, God really is so good. And I'm actually just really expectant of the future.
Yeah.
And like, if 2026 Amy could talk to 2017 and then 2019 and then when my divorce happened, those big dates, like, man, I just, there's so much I wish I could go back and just tell her, just be like, you're going to make it.
Yeah.
Like, and you're going to be okay. Like, and the Lord's going to see you through. And so I am excited for what's ahead
to come next. Well, you guys, if you want to utilize Amy's charcuterie services, her company is called Ames and Olives out there on the West Coast in the Portland, Vancouver, Washington area. So check that out. And thank you again, friend, for
Thanks so much for having me. This is fun.
It was.